Chapter 3, Criminal Justice Firearms. Unit 1, Firearms Safety. Lesson 1, Firearms Safety Procedures. Lesson Goal. At the end of this lesson, you will know and demonstrate the firearms safety procedures that should be followed when handling or using firearms. Officers face many dangers as part of their jobs, including the use of firearms. Failure to cautiously and consistently follow the rules of safe firearm handling can result in serious injury or death. You must acquire proper training on the specific model of firearm you will carry and use before touching, handling, or loading that firearm or any other firearm. Identify the primary and support hand. When studying firearms, the term primary hand refers to the hand you use to shoot the firearm. Your support hand is the hand that assists the primary hand. Identify the common cause of most firearm accidents. Safety is the most important element of firearms training. Think before you act whenever you are around firearms. No matter how proficient you become at marksmanship, you and those around you are not safe if you carelessly handle or discharge a firearm. As recruits, and later as officers, you will always follow all of the firearms safety rules. Facilitators and range instructors will enforce the safety rules anytime firearms are present, issued, or handled. Remember, you are responsible for your firearm at all times. Always refer to the manufacturer's manual for safety recommendations. General Rules of Firearms Safety. Identify the general rules of safety that should be applied to all firearms. Follow these safety rules at all times. Treat every firearm as if it were loaded. Never point your firearm at anything that you do not intend to shoot. Keep your finger off the trigger and indexed on the frame until you are ready to fire. Keep your firearm on safe until you intend to fire, if applicable. Know your target and beyond. Rules for firearms safety on the range. Follow these safety rules while on the firing range. 1. Immediately obey all directions and commands from the range instructor. Also, do not do anything until the range instructor provides you with instructions. A. Load only on the range instructor's command. B. Do not retrieve dropped ammunition, magazines, or equipment until the range instructor declares it safe to do so. C. If the range instructor issues the unload command, perform unloading procedures, even if the firearm is already unloaded. D. You may leave the firing line only at the range instructor's command. A firing line refers to the position in which gunfire is directed at targets. E. Stop firing immediately when the ceasefire command is given. 2. Care for and respect all firearms. A. Always prioritize safety and never abuse firearms. Remember that it is your responsibility to keep yourself and others safe while on the range. B. Perform a safety check by pulling the slide back to the locked position in order to visually and physically verify that the firearm is not loaded each time you are issued or return a firearm. This should be performed each time you pick up, put down, or hand a firearm to another person. C. Report any issues with the firearm to the range instructor, e.g., loose screws or loose sights. 3. Always keep the firearm secure and in its holster until you are told to perform an action. A. Keep the retention mechanisms engaged on holstered firearms at all times. B. Never unholster a firearm behind the firing line. C. When moving to and from the range, keep the action of the firearm open, indicating that there are no rounds present. For a pistol, this means having the magazine removed, slide locked to the rear, and muzzle pointed in a safe direction. Safety on, if applicable. Four. Keep your finger off the trigger and indexed on the frame when drawing the firearm or returning it to your holster. 5. Always point unholstered firearms in a safe direction. 6. Never handle firearms on the firing line while someone is downrange. 7. Dry fire on the firing line while under the range instructor's supervision. Dry fire refers to the discharging of a firearm with an empty chamber and no magazine inserted. 8. Only use ammunition that is provided by the range instructor. 9. Use ear and eye protection while on or near the firing line. 10. Do not talk during range exercises unless your range instructor speaks to you or there is an emergency. 11. Do not eat, drink, or use tobacco products while on the firing line. 12. Be courteous to fellow shooters. 13. When not training, watch other shooters and listen to the range instructor. 14. If you drop a firearm, do not pick it up. Raise your hand to notify the range instructor immediately. 15. If a firearm fails to fire, keep it pointed in a safe direction and attempt to clear the malfunction. If you cannot resolve the issue, raise your support hand to notify the range instructor. 16. Be aware of spent casings, hot brass, as they are being ejected from your or your fellow shooter's firearms. If you need to remove hot brass from your person, you must secure your firearm first. 17. Immediately report any and all injuries to an Academy staff member. Know the location of the trauma or first aid kit on the range. Storing firearms safely. You are responsible for making sure your firearm is secure at all times, including when you are off duty. Identify the requirements in the Florida statutes for storing a firearm. Section 790.174 FS addresses requirements for storing firearms safely. 1. A person who stores or leaves, on a premise under his or her control, a loaded firearm as defined in S 790.01, and who knows or reasonably should know that a minor is likely to gain access to the firearm without the lawful permission of the minor's parent or the person having charge of the minor, or without the supervision required by law, shall keep the firearm in a securely locked box or container, or in a location which a reasonable person would believe to be secure, or shall secure it with a trigger lock, except when the person is carrying the firearm on his or her body or within such close proximity thereto, that he or she can retrieve and use it as easily and quickly as if he or she carried it on his or her body. 2. It is a misdemeanor of the second degree, punishable as provided in S 775.08 or Section 775.083. If a person violates subsection 1 by failing to store or leave a firearm in the required manner, and as a result thereof a minor gains access to the firearm without the lawful permission of the minor's parent or the person having charge of the minor, and possesses or exhibits it without the supervision required by law. A. In a public place, or B. in a rude, careless, angry, or threatening manner in violation of Section 790.10. This subsection does not apply if the minor, a person under the age of 16, obtains the firearm as a result of an unlawful entry by any person. Unit 1, Firearms Safety. Lesson 2, Use of Deadly Force. Lesson Goal. At the end of this lesson, you will be able to identify the statutes that govern the use of force and the legal aspects of using deadly force. Use of force. Chapter 776, FS, governs all use of force by criminal justice officers. Even though the statute refers to law enforcement officers, the legal guidelines regarding use of force apply equally to corrections and correctional probation officers. Identify elements of the Florida statutes as related to the use of force by criminal justice officers. Section 776.05, FS, identifies two general areas in which an officer's use of force is justified: to apprehend a subject and make an arrest, or to defend oneself or others. The statutes state, a law enforcement officer, or any person whom the officer has summoned or directed to assist him or her, need not retreat or desist from efforts to make a lawful arrest because of resistance or threatened resistance to the arrest. The officer is justified in the use of any force. 1. Which he or she reasonably believes to be necessary to defend himself or herself or another from bodily harm while making the arrest. 2. When necessarily committed in retaking felons who have escaped, or 3. When necessarily committed in arresting felons fleeing from justice. However, this subsection shall not constitute a defense in any civil action for damages brought for the wrongful use of deadly force unless the use of deadly force was necessary to prevent the arrest from being defeated by such flight, and, when feasible, some warning had been given, and a. The officer reasonably believes that the fleeing felon poses a threat of death or serious physical harm to the officer or others, or b. The officer reasonably believes that the fleeing felon has committed a crime involving the infliction or threatened infliction of serious physical harm to another person. Deadly force. Define deadly force. Deadly force is force that is likely to cause death or great bodily harm. Section 776.06, FS, states, 1. The term deadly force includes, but is not limited to, a. The firing of a firearm in the direction of the person to be arrested, even though no intent exists to kill or inflict great bodily harm, and b. The firing of a firearm at a vehicle in which the person to be arrested is riding. Identify the essential criteria to determine the justification of the use of deadly force. Section 776.07, FS states, 1. A correctional officer or other law enforcement officer is justified in the use of force, including deadly force, which he or she reasonably believes to be necessary to prevent the escape from a penal institution of a person whom the officer reasonably believes to be lawfully detained in such institution under sentence for an offense or awaiting trial or commitment for an offense. The use of deadly force does not necessarily mean that someone has died from the force used. Deadly force can cause great bodily harm or no harm at all. For example, returning fire is considered deadly force, even if the officer misses their target. The use of deadly force may be an officer's first and only appropriate response to a perceived threat, but it must be based on a clear, reasonable belief that you, a fellow officer, or another person faces impending danger of death or great bodily harm. O must never shoot a firearm unless you are faced with a deadly force encounter. Once you have used your firearm, you have reached the highest level of force, deadly force. For more details regarding the use of force, refer to the Legal and Defensive Tactics chapters. Unit 2, Ammunition. Lesson 1, Ammunition Identification and Maintenance. Lesson Goal. At the end of this lesson, you will be able to identify different types and calibers or gauges of ammunition, and know how to inspect ammunition for defects and store ammunition properly. Ammunition, parts and types. Identify pistol ammunition parts and nomenclature. Bullet, portion of the cartridge that becomes a projectile when in flight. Case, casing, the metal or plastic container that holds all parts of a round of ammunition. Primer, powder, and bullet. Head stamp, markings found on the head of ammunition that indicate caliber or gauge and identify manufacturer. Powder, propellant used in most firearms. It produces a large volume of gas when ignited. Primer, mixture used to ignite the propellant or powder. Rim, the edge on the base of a cartridge case that stops the progress of the case into the chamber. Round, complete ammunition cartridge that contains all parts of ammunition. Explain the difference between caliber and gauge. Ammunition can be identified by examining the caliber or gauge found on the cartridge's head stamp. Caliber is a measurement used to identify different cartridge and projectile sizes. It is determined by measuring the diameter of the bore, the inside of the barrel, of the firearm. This helps identify the correct ammunition for a specific firearm. Gauge is a measurement of shotgun bores derived from the number of bore-sized balls of lead per pound. Inspecting ammunition for possible abnormalities or defects. It is important to know how to inspect ammunition for functionality and dependability. Your ammunition may be the correct type, caliber, and gauge, but it must still be checked for damage or defects. Identify any abnormalities or defects on ammunition. This section covers the most common types of ammunition defects and how to inspect ammunition for those abnormalities or defects. You may find these abnormalities and defects when inspecting ammunition. Scrape, indentation in the case that may weaken the case wall, occurs when a layer of the case wall has been scratched or torn away. Dent, dimple, or depression in the case. Corrosion, layering of the case with oxidation or foreign material, such as mold, fungi, congealed oil, and lubricants. Puncture, actual opening in the case body. In addition to this list are other abnormalities and defects that include the round not firmly seated in the casing, missing primer, half primer, and more. Inspecting ammunition before loading is important. Periodically check your ammunition to identify and separate less than perfect rounds from service ammunition. 1. Make sure that the casing and rim are free of defects. Look and feel for scrapes, dents, corrosion, and punctures. 2. Determine that the projectile is firmly seated in the casing. Feel both ends of the ammunition to make sure the projectile is not loose. 3. Make sure that the primer is seated properly and free of dents. Look at and feel the cartridge to verify the primer is flush with the rim. Handling ammunition safely. Proper maintenance of ammunition involves any care that helps provide the most safety when using and inspecting ammunition. Improperly maintained ammunition may cause a firearm to fail to fire or function, which may result in serious injury or death in a self-defense situation. Identify proper handling procedures for ammunition. Use only ammunition from a reputable manufacturer and do not alter the manufacturer's original design. Do not use reloads for duty ammunition. Reloads are cartridges that have been prepared using previously fired brass cases and are not as reliable as new ammunition. Also, using reloaded ammunition may void the warranties of many firearms. Do not drop or throw ammunition, as it may discharge. Do not place ammunition in the radio holder of your patrol vehicle. Ammunition that comes into contact with an electrical impulse may cause it to discharge. Solvents and lubricants may cause a failure to fire malfunction, so avoid using them when handling ammunition. Wash your hands before handling ammunition to prevent solvents on your hands from seeping into the primers. Unit 3, Semi-Automatic Pistol. Lesson 1, Familiarization. Lesson Goal. At the end of this lesson, you will know the semi-automatic pistol parts with correct nomenclature, the way the parts function, and the steps to safely handle a semi-automatic pistol. The term handgun refers to either the semi-automatic pistol or the revolver. This unit focuses on the semi-automatic pistol, which is the handgun that most criminal justice officers carry. Identify semi-automatic pistol parts with the correct nomenclature. All firearms have many of the same types of parts to achieve the same function. It is important to learn the nomenclature of the firearms covered in this training and how their parts function together to make the firearms work. This knowledge allows safe firearms operation on the range and in the field. It also helps you to better communicate with the armorer and to testify in court in a clear and credible manner. Semi-automatic pistols may operate differently based upon who manufactured them. Make sure you are familiar with the part names, locations, and functions for the semi-automatic pistol that you use. The following terms are associated with the use and function of a semi-automatic pistol. Accessory rail provides space for lighting and sighting devices. Backstrap, portion of the grip that is placed in the palm of the shooting hand. Decocker, mechanism that safely decocks the pistol, releasing the spring tension on the cocked hammer or striker without allowing them to reach the round horns. Frame chatpoy receiver holds the internal parts as well as the slide assembly. Front sight, located on the front of the slide, used to bring the firearm into alignment for accuracy. Front strap, portion of the grip that allows the fingers of the shooting hand to rest. Hammer, strikes the primer or firing pin to ignite the propellant and fire the round band seam. Magazine release, releases the magazine from the frame. Magazine well. Muzzle, barrel, provides a path for the fired bullet. Rear sight, located on the rear of the slide, used to bring the firearm into alignment for accuracy. Slide, houses the firing pin, barrel, recoil spring, sights, and extracto. Slide lock, takedown lever, device that allows quick and simple field stripping. Slide stop lever, device that locks the slide in the open position. Trigger, activates the pistol's operation. Trigger guard, part of the frame that protects the trigger. Position of parts may vary depending on the make and model of weapon. Semi-automatic pistol magazine. The magazine holds the ammunition and can be taken apart for cleaning. When reassembling the magazine, make sure to replace the spring and follower correctly. Identify semi-automatic pistol magazine parts with the correct nomenclature. Follower activates the slide stop and pushes the round up to be stripped off by the forward movement of the slide. Magazine floor butt plate holds the spring and follower in the magazine. Magazine insert keeps the floor butt plate secure and prevents dirt and debris from entering the magazine. Magazine tube holds the internal components in place, including the ammunition. C-spring pushes the follower up. How the semi-automatic pistol works. Describe how the semi-automatic pistol works. A semi-automatic pistol functions by using the energy from the recoil of a single round of ammunition to extract and eject a fired cartridge from the pistol's chamber and load an unfired round from a magazine into the chamber for the next shot. As you press the trigger fully to the rear in double-action mode, the hammer moves back and then releases to strike the firing pin. Upon firing, the slide moves back, extracting and ejecting the spent cartridge case and pushing the hammer to the fully cocked position. As the slide moves to the rear, the recoil spring compresses. When all the energy has been used, the spring decompresses, pushing the slide forward. Then the slide returns forward, feeding the next cartridge from the magazine to the barrel chamber. The hammer remains cocked, and the trigger is in the rear position, so subsequent shots fire in single-action mode. This sequence repeats until the last round fires. Then the magazine follower exerts upward pressure on the slide stop, causing it to engage and hold the slide in the open position. This example describes a double-action, single-action pistol. Cycle of operation, open action. Loading, inserting a loaded magazine into the magazine well, feeding, chambering, moving the round from the magazine to the chamber by releasing the slide, picking up the round from the magazine, and seating the round into the chamber. Locking, the breech or back end of the barrel locks into the slide. Firing, ignition of the primer, and firing the cartridge. Unlocking, unseating the breech end of the barrel from the slide. Extraction, pulling the spent cartridge from the chamber. Ejecting, pushing the spent cartridge out of the ejection port. Eject, cocking, returning the firing mechanism to the fire position. A function check ensures that the firearm functions properly. It is usually performed after field stripping or cleaning and reassembling the firearm. To perform a function check, follow these steps. 1. Visually and physically check the firearm to make sure it is unloaded. 2. Operate the slide several times to make sure that it operates freely. 3. Press the trigger. The firearm should function properly. 4. If the firearm, A, has an external hammer, then manually cock the hammer and press the trigger. The firearm should function properly. B is a striker-fired weapon. Then hold the trigger to the rear as you release or cycle the slide with the support hand. Then slowly release the pressure off the trigger until the trigger resets. You should hear a click and feel the reset on the trigger. C. Has a decocking lever. Then manually cock the hammer and depress the lever. The pistol's hammer should decock. 5. Fully insert an empty magazine into the magazine well. 6. Pull the slide to the rear and confirm that it locks. 7. Depress the magazine release. The magazine should fall free. 8. Depress the slide stop lever or pull the slide to the rear and then release. The slide should function properly. Handing the semi-automatic pistol to another person. To hand a semi-automatic pistol to another person, follow these steps. 1. Engage the safety, if applicable. 2. With your finger outside the trigger guard, press the magazine release and remove the magazine from the magazine well. 3. Secure the magazine. 4. Point the firearm in a safe direction and pull the slide to the rear to eject the live round from the chamber. 5. Lock the slide to the rear by pulling it all the way to the rear and engaging the slide stop lever on the firearm's frame. 6. Visually and physically inspect the chamber, magazine well, and barrel to make sure they are empty. 7. With the slide locked to the rear and the magazine well empty, hand the pistol to the other person. Grip first. The person receiving the firearm should visually and physically check to make sure that it is unloaded. Unit 3, Semi-Automatic Pistol. Lesson 2, Drawing and Holstering. Lesson Goal. At the end of this lesson, you will know how to draw and holster a handgun. Drawing a handgun. The drawing and holstering procedures are the same for all handguns. While performing either maneuver, always remember to keep your head and eyes up to watch for threats, even in training. In other words, get in the habit of staying vigilant, because doing so regularly may save your life. Identify the steps to draw a handgun. Bring weapon to workspace. Eye level. Keep eyes on the threat. Raise your support hand to the workspace. Your support hand meets the weapon in the workspace. While eyes remain on threat, keep the weapon level and drive it forward. To draw a handgun, follow these steps. 1. Disengage the holster retention device. 2. Keeping your hand high on the backstrap, wrap your fingers around the grip. Establish the grip prior to the draw, and avoid adjusting it once the handgun leaves the holster. 3. Lift the handgun upward so its muzzle clears the top of your holster. Remember to keep your trigger finger off the trigger and indexed on the frame. 4. With the handgun now in your workspace, or pulled in close and in your direct line of sight, join the support hand with the primary hand to form the two-handed grip and drive the muzzle straight toward the target. If no threat is present, keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction with your finger off the trigger and indexed on the frame. Standing in place without cover during a deadly force encounter can get you killed, especially at the beginning of an engagement. Make yourself a hard target early in the encounter by stepping outside the threat's visual cone or direct line of sight when drawing your handgun. This is commonly referred to as moving off the X. While the lateral slide step movement is great for creating angles that change the threat's immediate point of aim, stepping laterally is only one way to do it. Ultimately, the situation, number of threats, and your immediate environment will dictate how and where you move. When moving, keep your feet low to the ground. feeling for objects that may cause you to trip or block your movement. Stepping low also helps with balance. In addition, be careful not to cross your feet. Demonstrate how to perform a lateral step while drawing a handgun. To perform the lateral slide step movement, follow these steps. 1. Face the target while assuming the offensive ready stance. 2. Shift your weight to the balls of your feet to allow movement. 3. Keep your back straight and your knees slightly bent. 4. While continuing to face the target, step to the side, leading with the foot in the direction that you are moving. For example, if you are moving right, step with your right foot first. 5. Slide the other foot over toward the leading foot to return to the offensive ready stance. Grip. Demonstrate a proper two-handed grip with a semi-automatic pistol. Grip during and after the draw is essential to good marksmanship and achieving tighter shot groups. A proper grip will help you with recoil management, the ability to control the movement of the handgun when it fires, allowing the sights to return on target in a predictable pattern without having to adjust your grip between shots. Your grip should be firm enough to manage the recoil. Establish the two-handed grip. 1. Establish a firm grip high on the backstrap. 2. Wrap up. 3. Complete the wrap-up as you drive the weapon forward. Primary hand index finger is straight and pointed forward. Support hand wraps around the primary hand. Thumbs align and point forward. Holstering a handgun. To holster a handgun, follow these steps. 1. Maintain a proper grip and keep your finger off the trigger and indexed on the frame. 2. In the reverse order from drawing, smoothly return the handgun to your holster until you seat it properly. 3. Align the retention device components and secure them together until locked. It is recommended for the semi-automatic pistol to use the thumb of your shooting hand on the rear of the slide to prevent the slide from moving to the rear while holstering. Unit 3, Semi-Automatic Pistol. Lesson 3, Loading, Unloading, and Reloading. Lesson Goal. At the end of this lesson, you will know how to load, unload, and reload a semi-automatic pistol. To load a semi-automatic pistol, use your primary hand to draw the firearm from your holster and bring it into your workspace. While doing so, always keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction and your head and eyes up to watch for threats. Remember to take advantage of every load and charge as an opportunity to establish a good sight picture before holstering. Demonstrate how to load and charge a semi-automatic pistol. To load and charge a semi-automatic pistol, follow these steps. 1. Hold the firearm with your primary hand and bring it into your workspace. 2. Retrieve a magazine from your pouch with your support hand. 3. Place your index finger along the front of the magazine as you retrieve it. 4. Use your index finger to guide the magazine into the magazine well. 5. Push the magazine into the magazine well with a sharp upward motion, using enough force to lock the magazine into place. Then slightly tug it to ensure that it is seated. 6. Grasp the slide with your support hand and pull it all the way to the rear while pushing the firearm forward with your primary hand, then release the slide. Let the slide travel forward on its own. Do not ride it forward. This chambers around. 7. Decock or disengage if applicable. Assume a proper draw while your eyes remain on target. Bring weapon to workspace, retrieve a magazine, insert a fresh magazine, and tap to seat it. Chamber a round by pulling the side to the rear and releasing, also known as slingshotting. Re-establish a good sight picture. Once safe to do so, holster your weapon while your eyes remain a threat, as situation dictates. Unloading. Whether you are loading, unloading, or reloading, remember to keep your head and eyes up to watch for threats while the firearm is in your workspace. To unload an equipped semi-automatic pistol, follow these steps. 1. Engage the safety, if applicable. 2. Bring the firearm to your workspace with your finger off the trigger and indexed on the frame. Press the magazine release. If you are a left-handed shooter, use your trigger finger to press the magazine release. Let the magazine fall to the ground. Do not attempt to catch it. 3. Eject the round from the chamber by grabbing the slide and pulling it to the rear several times. 4. Lock the slide to the rear by pulling it all the way to the rear and engaging the slide stop lever. 5. Visually and physically inspect the chamber and magazine well to make sure they are empty. Remember to keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction at all times, and be sure that your hand or fingers do not cover the pistol's ejection port when operating the slide. Empty gun reload. When the slide locks back because the gun is empty, you must reload. Remove your finger from the trigger and index it on the frame, then press the magazine release as you bring the handgun into your workspace and allow the empty magazine to fall to the ground. Follow the loading procedures as outlined previously, and note that the slide may be released to chamber a round by pressing the slide stop lever. Unit 3 Semi-Automatic Pistol. Lesson 4 Malfunctions. Lesson Goal. At the end of this lesson, you will know the malfunctions that may occur when using a semi-automatic pistol and how to correct them. This section will teach you how to identify and correct the types of malfunctions that may occur as you fire your handgun. A malfunction is a condition that prevents a firearm from operating properly. You can usually prevent malfunctions caused by ammunition if you inspect the ammunition for defects before use. Knowing how to identify and correct problems with your firearm may save your life. Demonstrate how to safely handle the semi-automatic pistol when identifying and correcting a malfunction. Before trying to correct a malfunction, follow these steps. 1. Remove your finger from the trigger and index it on the frame. 2. Bring the firearm to your workspace, keeping the muzzle pointed in a safe direction. 3. Identify the kind of malfunction and the proper technique for correcting it. Identify the types of semi-automatic pistol malfunctions that may occur. Semi-automatic pistol malfunctions include a squib load, a failure to fire, a failure to feed, a failure to eject, a double feed, or a failure to extract. The leading cause of malfunctions in semi-automatic weapons is the failure to properly seat the magazine. A squib load is a malfunction that occurs when the primer ignites and there is no burn or only partial burn of the powder. Squib loads can cause a bullet to fail to exit the muzzle and become lodged in the bore, which is a major safety hazard. A distinct sound is associated with a squib load. It is not as loud or forceful as the sound of a regular round firing. You hear a pop instead of a bang, and feel much less recoil. If a squib load malfunction occurs during training, follow these steps. 1. Stop firing. 2. Keep your firearm pointed downrange. 3. Raise your support hand. 4. Wait for the range instructor to take the firearm. Range instructors are responsible for clearing this malfunction. This description of a squib load and the procedure for handling a squib load apply to any firearm. If you have a squib load malfunction during a deadly force encounter, be prepared to go to a secondary firearm if it is necessary and if one is available. Retreat and move to cover. A failure to fire occurs when the trigger is pressed, but the round fails to detonate. The following conditions cause a failure to fire. 1. The safety is engaged. Correct this malfunction by disengaging the safety. 2. There is a failure to chamber a round. Correct this malfunction with Phase 1 clearance. Tap, rack, ready, which will be explained in the next section. 3. The magazine is not seated in the magazine well. Correct this malfunction by tapping the magazine into the magazine well. 4. The primer fails to fire after the firing pin or striker hits it. The result is a misfire and a dead round. Correct this malfunction with Phase 1 clearance. Tap, rack, ready. In a failure to feed, the cartridge fails to feed into the chamber. This occurs when the magazine is not fully seated. Use Phase 1 clearance. Tap, rack, ready to correct this malfunction or insert a new magazine. Failure to eject, often called a stovepipe, occurs when a fired cartridge case does not completely eject. The most common causes are a weak powder charge, bad ammunition, a dry weapon, not enough lubrication, and a shooter not providing enough resistance while firing for the slide to operate. Limp wrist. Use Phase 1 clearance. Tap, rack, ready to correct this malfunction. A double feed is when a round fails to extract from the chamber and is met with a new round that is being fed from the magazine. The cause of this malfunction includes damaged or poorly fitting magazine lips. To clear a double feed, you must use Phase 2, E2, to clearance, which will be explained in a later sectio. Failure to extract occurs when a spent casing remains in the chamber while a new cartridge enters the chamber. The causes of this malfunction include a weak powder charge, bad ammunition, dirt behind the extractor, a dirty chamber, a broken extractor, a damaged or worn rim on the case, or an overexpanded or cracked case. To clear this malfunction, use Phase 1 clearance. If you do not succeed, try Phase 2 clearance. If the extractor is worn or broken, a certified armorer must repair the firearm. If the firearm is dirty, it must be cleaned. Apply the proper techniques for clearing semi-automatic pistol malfunctions. You can clear most malfunctions from the pistol, excluding a squib load, using 2 clearance methods. While performing either method, always attempt to clear the malfunction in your workspace so you can watch for threats while getting your firearm back into action. Move to cover, if available, to clear a malfunction during a deadly force encounter. Remember to keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction at all times. During proficiency evaluations and qualifications, you must clear weapon malfunctions, except a squib load, and continue firing. If you cannot return your firearm to firing condition after performing an immediate action drill, raise your support hand to notify the range instructor. Phase clearance. Immediate action drill use. Phase 1 clearance to fix failure to feed, failure to fire, stovepipe, and failure to extract malfunctions. The easiest way to remember this method is to learn the phrase tap, rack, ready, fire, if necessary. When a malfunction occurs, follow these steps. 1. Bring the firearm into your workspace to identify the cause of the malfunction. 2. Tap. Use your support hand to tap the bottom of the magazine into the magazine well. If the magazine is not fully seated, tapping will seat it. 3. Rack. Reach up to the slide with your support hand, pull the slide to the rear, and then release it. Be sure that your hand or fingers do not cover the pistol's ejection port. This is the same action you use when loading your firearm. It extracts and ejects a bad round, if necessary, and chambers a new round. For ready, in a deadly force encounter, you must assess the situation. You either re-engage the subject if they are still a threat, or issue commands if the subject surrendered while you were clearing the malfunction. 5. Fire, if necessary. Phase 2. Clearance, immediate action drill. If Phase 1 clearance does not clear the malfunction, or the malfunction is a double feed, use Phase 2 clearance. A Phase 2 clearance is more detailed and time-consuming. Performing a Phase 2 clearance. Follow these steps. 1. Bring the firearm into your workspace to identify the cause of the malfunction. 2. Lock the slide to the rear to release pressure on the recoil spring and guide and the magazine. 3. Depress the magazine release and forcibly strip the magazine from the magazine well with the support hand. 4. Rotate the pistol toward the ejection port side and, with your support hand, work the slide back and forth until you clear the barrel and chamber of any rounds or obstructions. 5. Push a new magazine into the magazine well using a sharp upward motion, then slightly tug it to ensure it is seated. 6. Chamber a round by grasping the slide with your support hand and pulling it all the way to the rear while pushing the firearm forward with your primary hand. Then release the slide. 7. Ready and assess the situation. Re-engage the subject if they are still a threat, or issue verbal commands. 8. Fire, if necessary. Another way to clear a Phase 2 malfunction is to skip Step 2, locking the slide to the rear, and proceed with Steps 3 to 7. Simply, Phase 1, tap rack ready. Phase 2, malfunction. Lock slide to rear. Strip magazine and rack slide with ejection port downward and reload the weapon to resume function. Unit 3, Semi-Automatic Pistol. Lesson 5, Fundamentals of Marksmanship. Lesson Goal. At the end of this lesson, you will know the fundamentals of marksmanship when shooting a handgun. Accurate shooting develops from knowing and correctly applying the fundamentals of marksmanship. The fundamentals of marksmanship are the same for all handguns. Concentrate on the fundamentals and breathe naturally while shooting to maximize your performance. Shooting stances and positions. Stance is the posture a shooter assumes while firing a weapon. Acquiring a proper shooting stance is important when using firearms tactically or defensively, as it provides the shooter with stability and the capacity to move and engage targets properly. You can fire a handgun in a number of stances and from a number of weapon positions. Apply the proper shooting stances and positions when shooting a handgun. Stances. Offensive ready stance. The offensive ready stance, sometimes called the fighting stance, is the same stance that is used in criminal justice defensive tactics. This stance most closely represents the instinctive response to a threat and minimizes the exposed areas of the body not covered by armor. The more aggressive the stance, the better. To assume the offensive ready stance, follow these steps. 1. Plant both feet shoulder width apart or slightly wider. 2. Align your head, hips, and feet toward the threat with your toes pointed forward. 3. Bend your knees slightly. 4. Bring the weapon side leg to the rear so that the toe aligns with the heel or arch of the support side foot. 5. Lean slightly forward to distribute more weight to the balls of the feet. 6. If shooting, draw your firearm to the two-hand high-point position and bring the sights to eye level with your head erect. Kneeling stance. To assume the kneeling stance, follow these steps. 1. While drawing your firearm, keep your finger off the trigger and indexed on the frame and drop down to 1 or 2 knees. 2. Keep the muzzle of your firearm pointed downrange. 3. Bring the firearm to the two-hand high-point position and the sights to eye level with your head erect. Handgun positions compressed ready position. Use the compressed ready position when you are covering a subject who is ready to take aggressive and perhaps deadly action, or when you find yourself moving through tight spaces. This position is safer when maneuvering through crowds and provides stability and ease of deployment while maintaining control of your firearm and reducing the chance of someone taking it away from you. You can also fire from this position in worst-case situations. To assume the compressed ready position, follow these steps. 1. Assume the offensive ready stance. 2. While maintaining both hands on the firearm, bring the firearm in close toward the center of your body and off to the weapon side slightly. The primary arm should be pulled back and pressed against the side of your body, with your finger off the trigger and indexed on the frame. 3. The muzzle of the firearm should be pointed slightly downward or parallel to the ground facing forward. Two-hand high-point position. In the two-hand high-point position, you are in an offensive ready or kneeling stance with your arms extended and sights on the target. This is the most common position to fire using a two-handed grip. Hip shooting position. Use the hip shooting position when you are within arm's reach, 3 to 4 feet away, of a threat to maintain control of your firearm and prevent them from grabbing it or knocking it to the side. To assume the hip shooting position, you have 2 options. Option 1. Use a one-handed grip. 1. Assume the offensive ready stance. 2. Draw your firearm. 3. Place the elbow, crotch, forearm of your weapon arm against the side of your body, above the holster, and slightly cant the firearm's magazine well toward the torso. Make sure the muzzle is pointed at the threat. 4. Keep your elbow, forearm against the side of your body above the holster. 5. Perform the upper area block with your support hand to guard against an attack. Refer to the Defensive Tactics chapter to learn how to perform the upper area block. Option 2. Use a two-handed grip. 1. Perform steps 1 to 4 for the one-handed grip method. 2. Bring your support hand to your primary hand to form a normal two-handed grip. Sight alignment and sight picture. Sight alignment is the relationship of the front sight and rear sight with the shooter's eye, ace. It occurs when the top of the front sight is level with the rear sight's top edge and centered in the rear sight aperture or notch. Keep your eyes centered behind the rear and front sights, as this is the most important aspect of aiming. Your eye instinctively accomplishes this task with little training. This method also causes the least inconsistency from shot to shot. Sight picture is the relationship between the eye, front sight, rear sight, and target. For proper sight alignment and sight picture, follow these steps. 1. Look along the top of the firearm's sight plane. 2. Align the tops of the front and rear sights so that they are of equal height. 3. Center the front sight between the rear aperture or notch to create equal light. 4. Place the sights on the target. 5. Focus on the front sight. The target will be blurry, and the rear sight will be slightly out of focus. 6. Use your dominant eye to align the sights. It is recommended that you keep both eyes open during firing. This practice may take time to get used to, but keeping both eyes open during firing improves the focus of your dominant eye and sight picture, as well as improves your accuracy while providing increased peripheral vision. Point shooting. Point shooting is the technique used when you cannot use the sights on your firearm or when you have no time to align the sight properly. In this case, the handgun becomes an extension of your arm and hand. Use this extension to point to the target or threat and fire. Most flashlight-assisted shooting requires point shooting skills, because point shooting can be very effective when the target is in silhouette. Also, flashlight-assisted conditions may alter how you see or use your sights. You should use this method only if you are close to the target or threat. Trigger control and follow-through. Trigger control results when the trigger finger presses the trigger straight back with increasing yet constant and steady pressure until the firearm discharges. Trigger control, the most difficult handgun fundamental to master, often determines a shot's success. To control the trigger properly, follow these steps. 1. The preferred method is to contact the trigger with your index finger. 2. Isolate your trigger finger to move the trigger straight back. Isolating your trigger finger means that you are applying pressure to the trigger with that finger without squeezing the rest of your hand. This is one of the many steps to help prevent the firearm from moving prior to the shot. Follow-through requires you to 1. Maintain sight alignment before, during, and after firing a round. 2. Maintain proper stance, grip, and finger placement on the trigger. 3. Acquire sight picture, and to re-establish it each time you fire a weapon. Do not try to force a handgun down at the time of discharge, anticipating recoil, but keep your body and firearm in a controlled position during discharge. The act of firing without moving the handgun is a fundamental of marksmanship. Failure to control the trigger, stance, and grip will result in improper sight alignment and motion in the muzzle when the hammer falls. Note: controlling the trigger is a mental process. Pressing the trigger is a physical process. Unit 3, Semi-Automatic Pistol. Lesson 6, Flashlight Principles. Lesson Goal. At the end of this lesson, you will know how to apply the proper flashlight grips and techniques when firing a semi-automatic pistol in low-light conditions. The flashlight's main function is illumination. This includes illumination for movement, navigation, and searching, as well as for identifying and engaging a threat. If the flashlight is bright enough, you can also use it to disorient an unknown person or suspect approaching you. Design and ergonomics are critical to proper and safe use of a flashlight. Firearm and hand sizes are two important factors in choosing an appropriate flashlight. Some firearms have the option to attach a weapon-mounted flashlight on the frame for tactical lighting. This allows you to turn your flashlight on and off while aiming at a target. Generally, using a flashlight lets you make a smooth transition from search to firing mode. The positioning between the flashlight and the bore of the firearm may offer some recoil control so you can place shots efficiently. In reduced light, you can execute all the fundamentals you practiced. Varying amounts of light in the confrontation area can work for or against you. For example, your vision may be affected for a period of time when you move quickly from a lighted area to a reduced light area. Furthermore, your silhouette may present you as a target when you move from a dark area to a lighted area. It is important to remember that using a flashlight at any time will give away your position. Whenever possible, consider the options of illumination for movement, navigation, searching, and to identify and control suspects. Always positively identify a threat before using deadly force. Flashlight grips. A flashlight grip is the way you hold a flashlight. Typically, you will hold your firearm in your primary hand while holding a handheld flashlight in the support hand. Use one of the following flashlight grips: the Watchman grip or the law enforcement or tactical grip. Watchman grip. The flashlight is held in the support hand with the illuminating end projecting from the index finger side of the hand. The thumb controls the on-off switch with a side-mounted switch near the front of the flashlight. The little or ring finger controls it with a side-mounted switch near the back of the flashlight. Law enforcement or tactical grip. The flashlight is held in the support hand, with the illuminating end projecting from the little finger side of the hand. The thumb controls a rear-mounted switch. The index finger controls a side-mounted switch near the back of the flashlight. The little or ring finger controls a side-mounted switch near the front of the flashlight. Flashlight techniques. Firing a handgun at night hinders sight alignment, the ability to obtain a sight picture, and the ability to identify threats or targets. You must be able to identify a target or threat before engaging it with your handgun. Ideally, you should fire in reduced light, at night, only at close proximity because of the risk involved in identifying targets and threats. Focus on your firearm's front sight if you can see it. If you cannot, you must use the point shooting technique. Apply proper flashlight techniques when shooting a semi-automatic pistol in low-light conditions. A flashlight technique is how you apply a flashlight grip. Use one of the following flashlight techniques: the Ayub technique, the Harry's technique, the neck index technique, or the FBI technique. Ayub technique. To use this technique, hold the handgun in your primary hand and the flashlight in your support hand using the Watchman grip. Then, hold your hands out in front of you, with your arms extended and hands pressed together at your thumbs. The Ayub technique provides some support for firearm control and good illumination in relationship to the firearm. It also helps illuminate the handgun sight. You can quickly assume this position and easily identify a target. Harry's technique. To use this technique, hold the handgun in your primary hand and the flashlight in your support hand using the law enforcement or tactical grip. Then, holding the handgun straight out in front of you, cross your support hand under your primary hand and put the backs of your hands together. With your hands braced together, you have more control over the handgun. The Harry's technique is not a natural position to take and requires practice. The key is to properly use the law enforcement or tactical grip. The technique illuminates the sights fairly well. Neck index technique. To use this technique, hold the handgun in your primary hand and the flashlight in your support hand using the law enforcement or tactical grip. Then, hold the flashlight to the side of your neck to illuminate the target through the sights of the handgun. FBI technique. To use this technique, hold the handgun in your primary hand and the flashlight in your support hand using the law enforcement or tactical grip. Then, hold the flashlight straight out to the side or above your head to illuminate the target. This technique works best when navigating around a barricade. Unit 3. Semi-Automatic Pistol. Lesson 7. Cleaning. Lesson Goal. At the end of this lesson, you will be able to identify the necessary supplies and tools to clean a semi-automatic pistol and know how to clean and lubricate it. Cleaning your firearm is important, as routine preventative maintenance will reduce the likelihood that a malfunction will occur. Cleaning also improves the accuracy, reliability, and lifespan of the firearm if performed regularly. When field stripping and cleaning your firearm, be sure to use the appropriate tools and cleaning supplies and do it in a properly lit and well-ventilated location. Field stripping. While field stripping and cleaning your semi-automatic pistol, follow these steps. 1. Remove live ammunition from the cleaning area. 2. Safety check the firearm. A. Remove the magazine from the magazine well by pressing the magazine release. Place the magazine away from the firearm. B. Lock the slide to the rear by pulling it back and engaging the slide stop lever. C. Visually and physically inspect the chamber, magazine well, and barrel. Look for ammunition casings and obstructions. 3. Remove the ammunition from the magazine and place it in a secure area away from the firearm. Cleaning and lubrication. The firearm's cleaning kit could include a bore brush, solvent, gun cleaning patches, cotton patches absorb more, nylon cleaning brush, cleaning cord, cleaning pad, gun oil or lubricant, non-penetrating, rags, pipe cleaners, and cotton swabs. Cleaning tools. Cleaning tools are caliber-specific. Use the tools designated for the specific caliber of your firearm. A larger caliber cleaning brush or patch tip does not fit in a small firearm and may cause damage. A small tool may not completely clean a large firearm. Solvent and lubricant. Several types and brands of cleaners and solvents are available. Use solvent and lubricant specifically designed for firearms maintenance. Patches and swabs. Consider the firearm's bore when choosing gun cleaning patches. Different materials have different absorption qualities. It is recommended that you observe the manufacturer's guidelines for cleaning your firearm. Make sure the tools you use do not invalidate the manufacturer's warranty or conflict with the manufacturer's recommendations. Remove all lead, powder, debris, and dirt. These substances can cause a malfunction if they build up. Use the following processes. 1. Brush properly. Use a back-and-forth brushing motion to remove loose objects, loosen other substances, and help solvents and cleaners work better. 2. Brush all surfaces of your firearm. A. Make sure that the bore brush clears the bore completely after each stroke. B. Make sure to use a soft brush that will not damage the firearm's outer finished surface. C. Brush with solvent. Solvents are designed to dissolve and loosen lead, powder, debris, dirt, and substances that brushing does not clean. 3. Wipe all parts repeatedly to remove all of the solvent and debris until your firearm is clean. Use new clean, dry patches when necessary. Pay special attention to the following parts of the semi-automatic pistol. Magazines. Clean magazines thoroughly and wipe dry. If magazines do not function properly, the firearm can malfunction. Bore. As the projectile travels down the bore, It leaves behind small amounts of the material it is made of. To thoroughly clean the bore, you should insert the cleaning brush into the bore's breech end. Push the cleaning brush through until it clears the muzzle, and then pull it all the way out. Repeat this process until the bore of the barrel is clean. Recoil spring and guide, clean thoroughly. Dirt and debris hinder the firearm's blowback and cycle function. Slide, clean the entire slide, outside and inside. Pay special attention to the slide rails. You can use cotton swabs. Extractor, clean the extractor thoroughly. It must be able to catch the rim of a fired cartridge as the firearm cycles. If not, the next round cannot feed properly and will result in a malfunction. Firing pinhole. Make sure the firing pinhole is free of all debris. Lubricating your firearm is very important. Check your firearm regularly to ensure it is properly lubricated, and check the manufacturer's recommended lubrication points and amounts. 1. Lubricate the frame or slide rails to reduce drag or friction between surfaces when the firearm cycles. 2. Lubricate any other points recommended by the manufacturer. 3. Remove excess lubrication by wiping it off using a clean, dry cloth. A little lubrication goes a long way. Excess lubrication or solvents can harm ammunition by destroying the primer and powder of loaded cartridges. Wipe the inside of the magazine dry. Leave no lubricant. When you finish cleaning and lubricating your pistol, follow these steps. 1. Reassemble the pistol and its magazines. 2. Perform a function check of the pistol for proper operation. 3. Return the pistol to safe storage, or holster and secure it. 4. Properly dispose of all cleaning supplies. 5. Wash your hands with soap and water. Unit 4, Survival Shooting. Lesson 1, Cover and Concealment. Lesson Goal. At the end of this lesson, you will be able to identify and know the difference between cover and concealment, and be able to apply proper firearms techniques when using cover and concealment. Recall that in Units 1 through 3, you learned about how to take care of and use a firearm. In survival shooting, the stakes are high, and you will need to properly prepare and be able to apply what you have learned while under pressure. The following lessons will illustrate different survival shooting scenarios and techniques. Cover and concealment. In every instance, scan for cover and assume that anything and everything around you could be used as a prepared fighting position. Cover is any object or obstacle that creates a bullet-resistant barrier between you and a threat. Examples include solid concrete walls, vehicle engine blocks, or concrete telephone poles. Cover should be chosen for its bullet-stopping capabilities, not its size. Concealment is any object or group of objects that creates a visual barrier between you and a threat, but may not stop a projectile. Examples include bushes, trees, and cars. The purpose of concealment is to hide your exact location. Cover can be concealment, but concealment is not necessarily cover. Walls and doors made of materials that bullets can penetrate may serve as concealment, but do not consider them cover. The objective of cover is to save your life by stopping or deflecting bullets and to provide a safer environment while you evaluate a situation. When choosing cover, consider the following factors when choosing the appropriate cover. Size. Ideally, the object should be large enough to fully conceal your body, such as a vehicle or concrete wall. However, any cover is better than no cover. Density. The cover should be capable of stopping a projectile. Location. The cover should provide you with a tactical advantage. Versatility. The cover should give you the most options, such as allowing you to use your primary hand rather than your support hand, or enable you to change positions or shooting stances. Before moving to cover. Consider these methods before moving to cover. 1. Never change your cover, just for the sake of change. Move to new cover if you need to reach a safer location or to gain a tactical advantage. 2. Be aware of your surroundings and the condition of your firearm, whether it is loaded, and how many rounds remain in your magazine. Reload your firearm behind cover before moving, or whenever possible. 3. Know what suffices for cover, and carefully select and scan your next position of cover before moving. 4. Always scan for other possible cover locations. While moving to cover. Consider these methods while moving to cover. 1. Be ready to engage the threat at any time while moving, so keep your firearm in the appropriate orientation and your finger off the trigger and indexed on the frame until you are justified in shooting. 2. Move quickly and decisively without hesitation and use concealment along the way if available. 3. Be aware of foot placement to avoid tripping. You may need to run, crawl, duck walk, or slide step laterally to reach cover. Lateral slide step movement. In Unit 3, Lesson 2, the concept of stepping laterally when drawing your firearm to escape the threat's visual cone was introduced. You can also slide step laterally when moving from one position of cover to the next, clearing a malfunction, or conducting a reload if not behind cover. When using cover. Consider these methods when using cover to engage a threat. 1. Keep your body and your firearm behind cover to avoid unnecessary exposure, and do not let the muzzle of your firearm extend beyond the cover object. 2. Maintain some distance from your cover, and do not rest your firearm and body on or against it. Leaning on your cover decreases your mobility, and it increases your chance of being hit by direct fire, ricochet, or scattered debris when projectiles impact your cover. Ricochet or debris may disable your firearm. 3. You do not have to be directly behind your cover to use it effectively. Try to use distance and angles to your advantage, and consider how your position of cover might look from the threat's viewpoint so that you are not leaving yourself exposed or giving them any advantages by your positioning. 4. Alter your shooting position from behind cover whenever possible, as muzzle flash may reveal your location, especially at night. Shooting from the barricade position. A barricade position is a position behind cover. To fire your handgun from the barricade position, follow these steps. 1. When faced with a threat, draw your firearm from your holster as you move to cover and identify your target. 2. Stay completely behind and away from cover. In other words, use your cover, but do not crowd it. 3. When engaging the threat from cover, use any shooting position or stance, but emerge from a different part of cover than where you arrived. More specifically, do not come out the same way you went in. 4. Present your firearm to the two-hand high point position before rolling out. 5. Roll out and expose only the necessary portion of your shoulder and head, and fire. Make sure that your muzzle does not extend beyond or touch your cover at any point. Tactical reload. Know the condition of your firearm at all times. Ensure your firearm is completely loaded before confronting an armed suspect, so you can reload when you want to, not when you need to, in order to avoid having an empty firearm during a deadly force encounter. To perform a tactical reload with a semi-automatic pistol, follow these steps. 1. Ensure that you have a lull in the engagement and assume a position of cover. 2. Hold the firearm with your primary hand and bring it into your workspace. 3. Retrieve a magazine from your pouch with your support hand and hold it in the top of your palm along your index finger. 4. Press the magazine release and catch the partially loaded magazine with the lower palm of the same hand. 5. Use your index finger to guide the fully loaded magazine into the magazine well. 6. Place the partially loaded magazine in your pocket to avoid confusing it with your other fully loaded magazines in your pouches. Unit 4 Survival Shooting. Lesson 2 Drawing and Reloading with One Hand. Lesson Goal. At the end of this lesson, you will be able to demonstrate drawing with the support hand and reloading with one hand only to engage a deadly threat. Drawing with your support hand only. If you have ever injured your primary hand and had to do tasks with your other hand, you know how difficult it can be. One of the worst situations you can find yourself in is to be in a situation where you need to use deadly force, but only have the use of one hand. For this reason, you need to practice using only your support hand for drawing and firing. Drawing and firing with your support hand only is an important skill to learn, since it is possible that your primary hand may be taken out of commission during a deadly force encounter. To draw with your support hand only, follow these steps. 1. Reach across the front or back of your body and use the fingers of your support hand to find the retention devices for your holster. 2. With your support hand fingers, disengage the retention devices. 3. Grip the handgun. 4. Safely draw the handgun from its holster and place it in a secure location, such as between your knees or on your lap. 5. Acquire a shooting grip on the handgun. 6. Drive the muzzle straight toward the target. If no threat is present, keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction with your finger off the trigger and indexed on the frame. Reloading with one hand only. Attackers tend to shoot for the gun, which means that your hand and arm could be taken out of action for the duration of the gunfight. This may also happen when your weapon is empty, so you must find a way to reload your firearm and re-engage the threat before they overrun your position. With your handgun empty and one hand out of service, use the following steps to reload your handgun with the other hand to neutralize the threat. To perform a slide lock reload with one hand only, follow these steps. 1. Pull the firearm into your workspace while ejecting the empty magazine. 2. Safely place the firearm in a secure location, such as your holster, between your legs, or behind your knee. 3. Retrieve a fresh magazine. 4. Load the fresh magazine into the firearm. 5. Acquire a shooting grip and draw the firearm. 6. Safely charge your firearm by pressing the slide release or cycle the slide using a ridged edge, such as your belt, holster, or magazine pouch. Unit 4 Survival Shooting. Lesson 3 Response to Active Threat and Shooter Incidents. Lesson Goal. At the end of this lesson, you will be able to prepare for and tactically respond to a deadly force encounter involving an active threat or active shooter. Active threat shooter incidents involve one or more individuals using deadly force, such as with firearms, edged weapons, vehicles, or other improvised devices to kill or attempt to kill people in a confined or populated area. Active threat shooter incidents are fast-paced and evolve quickly, leaving little time for officers to wait for backup to respond. Due to the increased number of incidents, you must prepare yourself mentally to confront an active threat shooter as a single responder at any given time. You might also hear the term active killer or active assailant at your agency when referring to active threat shooter incidents. Always assume that you will respond alone, so be prepared to act without backup. Many lives depend on your ability to think and act swiftly, and the way you train and prepare for the event will likely determine the outcome at the scene. Threat assessment. Upon arriving at the scene, scan the area for possible problems and additional threats. The ability to assess a situation or subject depends largely on your observation skills, including the ability to differentiate between deadly and non-deadly threats, recognize hazardous areas and potential weapons, and identify areas that provide cover or concealment. Survival stress is the body and mind's response to a perceived threat. Any stressful encounter, especially one that involves the use of deadly force, can generate physiological changes that affect how you perform on scene and your ability to recall the event. In addition to training and experience, understanding the physiological changes associated with survival stress will help you manage them before, during, and after an encounter. Managing these changes will help reduce anxiety, stabilize motor skills, heighten situational awareness, and improve your ability to react decisively at the scene. Survival stress may induce physiological changes that dictate the way you behave and perform in a deadly force encounter. For example, you may experience tunnel vision, diminished or amplified hearing, and an increased heart rate that makes it harder than usual to accomplish basic tasks. It is not uncommon to lose your fine motor skills when under an immense amount of stress. Small, precise movements, such as basic firearms manipulation or aiming, may become difficult. For example, while in a situation where you are under fire, you may depend more on your point shooting skills, since the physical ability to shoot with one eye open while under fire will diminish greatly. With the loss of your fine motor skills, you may need to rely more heavily on your gross motor skills, which will demand more from your large or major muscles to perform actions such as running or taking cover. Another symptom of survival stress is the loss of complex motor skills. Losing your complex motor skills will make it difficult to perform tasks that require a combination of fine and gross motor skills using hand-eye coordination timed to a single event, such as shooting while on the move and reloading while scanning for threats. In worst-case situations, you may suffer a complete breakdown of all motor skills that make you freeze up and be incapable of taking action. To help manage the effects of survival stress, consider using the following strategies. 1. Take slow, deep breaths. 2. Keep your head and eyes moving. 3. Use the OODA loop decision cycle. Observe. Take in information using the senses. Orient, sort through what is observed, and focus on what is really important. Decide. Make a decision based on what is important. Act. Take appropriate action based on the decision. Mental preparation. Recognize how survival stress will affect your ability to respond, and then develop strategies to manage that stress to prepare for a deadly force encounter. Get yourself in the headspace to confront such a threat by mentally rehearsing possible scenarios and your response to each one. Being mentally and emotionally prepared for the occasion will help you maintain your focus as you actively pursue and engage the threat. Identify the possible sources of survival stress during an active threat shooter incident. Possible sources of stress that may trigger physiological changes and affect your tactical response during an active threat shooter incident include people that are injured, dying, or dead, people pleading for help, people running and screaming, sounds of gunfire, smell of smoke, smell of blood, loud alarms, flashing lights. Avoid the urge to stop and help those who are wounded or scared until the threat has been stopped, since your primary focus is to stop the active threat shooter before they can kill more people. Tactical response. No matter what your assigned duty is, you may need to respond to an active threat active shooter incident. Because officers are expected to respond to these incidents, whether they are part of a specialized unit with several years of training or new officers just starting their careers, officers need to be able to think tactically and be ready to switch from a service-oriented role to tactical mode without notice. Making this switch can be difficult, so it is important to know the principles of tactical response and how to recognize the deadly threats at the scene. You also need to know which tactics to use immediately after neutralizing the threat. Principles of tactical response include: immediate response. Prepare to respond with what you have on your person or what is immediately available to you. Violence of action. Use unrestricted speed, strength, surprise, and aggression to stop the threat. Direct-to-threat clearing. Bypass all doors, rooms, and potential unknown threats if the location of the threat is known by sight, sound, or intelligence. Monitor the flow of the crowd, because observing where people are running away from can reveal the location of the threat. Noise discipline. Use the element of surprise by moving quietly. Positive target identification. Positively identify and stop the active threat active shooter, and avoid additional armed responders, such as officers from other agencies, school guardians, or armed security teams. Scanning for and recognizing threats at the scene. Pass. A person who holds a non-threatening posture and has been visually cleared of weapons. Hold or assess. A person who poses a fear of attack and does not assume and hold a surrender position or non-threatening posture. Shoot. An active threat active shooter that has been identified and recognized as not being able to be safely and immediately captured or contained by lesser means. Tactics to use immediately after neutralizing the threat. Assess 360-degree security, making sure there are no other active threats, or active shooters, or accomplices. Self-check. Communicate with responding backup. Provide first aid.